All right, I need you to hear what happened when I finally worked up the courage to ask Jesus what really happens to babies who leave us too soon. What he showed me about their sacred journey completely broke my heart, but in the most beautiful way possible. The truth about where they go, who cares for them, and the incredible purpose they have will fundamentally change how you understand loss, innocence, and the profound, personal nature of God's love for the most vulnerable souls who grace our world. Before I can even begin to describe the beautiful, heartbreaking truth Jesus revealed, I need to be completely honest with you about the journey that led me to that question. It's not a simple story, and it's going to take some time to lay it all out, but without understanding the weight this has carried in my own heart, the answer he gave me won't have the power it deserves. This wasn't just some theological question for me. This came from a place of deep, human confusion and a desperate need to know that the most innocent among us are truly safe and cherished. For years, this question has been a quiet ache in the back of my mind. Through my work, I've had the privilege of meeting so many people, and a few times, I've sat with families who were navigating the unimaginable pain of losing a child. I've listened to their stories, held their hands, and prayed with them, but I always walked away feeling a profound sense of inadequacy. I could offer verses about heaven and trust, but I didn't have a real, tangible answer for the question that hung in the air. Where is my baby right now? I remember one encounter so clearly. It was a few years ago, after a speaking event. A young couple approached me, their eyes filled with a grief that was so raw it felt like a physical presence. The mother, her voice barely a whisper, asked me, "We lost our son, Samuel, just a few weeks after he was born. Does he know how much we love him? Is he okay?" All I could do was hug her and tell her that God's love is perfect. But my words felt like pebbles thrown into an ocean of her pain, and that feeling of helplessness never left me. That couple's question became my own. I started thinking about all the unborn children, the infants, the toddlers whose time on earth was just a flicker. We talk about a journey of faith, of learning and growing, of making choices. But what about those who never got the chance? What does their path look like? Are they just absorbed into the light? Or do they have a story, a purpose, a continuation of the life that began with such hope and promise? The not knowing started to feel like a heavy blanket I couldn't shake off. This feeling intensified recently in ways I didn't expect. As you might know, we released the 5th season of The Chosen a couple of months ago, and we're currently deep into filming the 6th. There have been several scenes involving children, and looking into their innocent faces while trying to portray the heart of Jesus just amplified this question in my soul. How could I speak of his love for the little children when I had this unresolved ache in my own heart about the ones who weren't here anymore? It started to create a spiritual dissonance that I knew I had to resolve. I began to research what different theologians and traditions had to say about it, but the answers were so varied and, honestly, unsatisfying. Some spoke of an age of accountability, others of a kind of spiritual stasis until a final judgment. It all felt so clinical, so disconnected from the heart of a God who I believe is pure personal love. None of it resonated with the Jesus I've come to know, the one who took children in his arms and blessed them. It felt like we, as humans, were trying to solve a divine mystery with legalistic formulas, and it just wasn't enough. My prayers about this became more frequent, but they were unfocused. I'd be in my regular prayer time and just throw the question out there, "God, what about the babies?" But I wasn't really listening for an answer. I was just venting my own confusion and sorrow. I was speaking at God instead of creating a quiet space to speak with him. I realize now that I was afraid of the answer. What if it was something I couldn't understand? What if there was no answer at all? The fear of an empty silence was almost worse than the confusion itself. The turning point came after a long day of filming a particularly emotional scene. I came home feeling drained, not just physically, but spiritually. The weight of portraying Jesus, combined with the personal weight of this unanswered question, was becoming too much to carry. I felt this disconnect between the profound love I was trying to show on screen and the void in my own understanding. I knew I couldn't continue like that. I had to seek an answer with my whole heart, not just as a passing thought, but as an urgent plea. I also found myself thinking about my own family, about the stories of relatives I never got to meet who passed in infancy generations ago. They were just names in a family tree, but they were real lives, real souls. Did their existence matter in the grand tapestry of eternity? I thought about every parent throughout history who has asked this question, from the most devout believer to the most hardened skeptic. This is a universal human ache, a wound that transcends culture, time, and even faith. It's a question that cries out from the very core of our being. I started talking to friends in ministry about it, and I was surprised by how many of them confessed to carrying the same uncertainty. They had their theological positions, the official answers they would give, but when I pushed, they admitted that, in their private moments of prayer, they still wondered. They still carried the what if. It made me realize that this wasn't just my private struggle. It was a collective question mark hanging over the hearts of so many people who are trying to reconcile their faith with the painful realities of a broken world. I remember reading a letter from a woman who had seen the show. She wrote about her daughter Lily, who had been born with a condition that meant she would only live for a few hours. This mother described holding her daughter and singing to her, telling her all about the family she was a part of, and making a lifetime of love fit into a few precious moments. Her letter ended with the question, "I know she is in heaven, but I need to know, does she remember me singing to her? Does she know my voice?" Her words just wrecked me. It wasn't about theology anymore. It was about memory, about connection, about the enduring bond of love. Does a soul so new that it barely touched the world carry that love with it? Does it know the face of its mother, the sound of its father's voice? This was the heart of the matter. This was the comfort that millions of grieving parents were desperately seeking. An abstract concept of heaven wasn't enough. They needed to know their child was known and loved personally, and that their own love had mattered. By the way, I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is. Drop a comment below. It's always amazing to see how connected we are from all around the world. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I realized I had been approaching this with my head, trying to figure out the logistics of salvation and eternity. But this was a question of the heart. It needed a heart-level answer. It required me to move past my intellectual searching and into a place of complete vulnerability before God. I had to stop asking for a theological treatise and start asking for a divine encounter. I needed to understand God's heart for these children, not just his policy. This realization changed the way I prepared to pray about it from that point forward. So, I decided to do something different. I wasn't going to just squeeze this into my morning prayers. I decided to set aside an entire night for nothing but this question. I fasted that day, not as some religious ritual, but to quiet my body and my mind, to clear away the noise and distractions of daily life. I wanted my spirit to be as open and receptive as possible. I wanted God to know that this wasn't a casual inquiry. It was the most pressing question in my soul, and I was willing to wait in the silence for as long as it took. That evening, as I prepared my heart, I brought all of those faces with me into my prayer space. I pictured that young couple at the event, their eyes filled with pain. I thought of the mother who wrote me the letter, singing to her baby Lily. I thought of my own distant relatives, the faceless names in my family's history. I wasn't just asking for myself anymore. I was carrying the grief and confusion of countless others, asking on their behalf for a revelation that could bring peace to their hearts, not just to mine. I spent some time in worship, just simple songs of trust and surrender. I was trying to get myself out of the way, to let go of my own preconceived notions of what the answer might be. I had to be willing to receive an answer that was bigger than my understanding, something that might not fit neatly into the theological boxes I had built. True revelation requires humility, and I was trying to empty myself of everything but the question itself, creating a holy space for Jesus to fill with his truth, whatever that might be. I read through the Gospels, focusing on every interaction Jesus had with children. The way he welcomed them, the way he warned others not to hinder them, the way he said the kingdom of heaven belongs to them. I immersed myself in his heart for the little ones, trying to align my own heart with his. I started to feel a shift inside me, a sense of peace that this wasn't a forbidden question. It was a question that he, as the ultimate loving father, would be more than willing to answer. He cared about this even more than I did. My heart was finally ready. It was no longer about my inadequacy or my intellectual curiosity. It was a pure, simple, and desperate plea for comfort and understanding, for myself and for everyone who has ever looked at a tiny, empty crib and asked God, why? I felt a profound sense of reverence and anticipation. I knew I was on the threshold of something sacred. I was about to knock on a door that I had been too afraid to even approach for years, and I had faith that the one on the other side would answer. That night, I went into my prayer room and I poured out my heart like never before. I didn't use fancy words or formal prayers. I just spoke to Jesus as a friend, as a son speaking to a father. I told him about the couple, about Lily's mother, about the ache this question had created in my own soul. I admitted my inadequacy, my frustration with theological answers that felt hollow, and my deep, desperate need to understand his heart on this. I held nothing back, laying all my confusion and sorrow at his feet. I specifically prayed, Jesus, I have to understand. For the babies, the infants, the ones who never took a breath in this world, what is their story? Where do they go? Are they alone? Do they grow? Lord, I'm not asking for a formula. I'm asking to see them through your eyes. Please, if you're willing, show me how you care for the most innocent souls. Show me the truth so I can share that comfort with the people who are carrying a pain I can only imagine. It was a prayer of complete surrender. As I sat in the silence after that prayer, the atmosphere in the room began to change. It wasn't a dramatic, thunder and lightning event. It was a gradual thickening of the peace, a stillness that was so profound it felt like it had substance and weight. Every anxious thought in my mind went quiet. The frantic energy of my questioning dissolved, replaced by a calm and holy expectation. I felt like a child who had just asked his father the biggest question in the world and was now waiting, knowing a loving answer was coming. My eyes were closed, but I started to perceive a soft, warm light behind my eyelids. It wasn't harsh or blinding, but gentle and inviting, like the first rays of dawn. With that light came a feeling of love so pure and overwhelming that it brought tears to my eyes. It was a love that was completely unconditional, a love that knew every fear and every question in my heart without me having to speak another word. I knew, with every fiber of my being, that I was in his presence. I didn't fall asleep, and it wasn't a traditional dream. I was fully conscious, fully aware, but I was also somewhere else. It was an experience of the heart and the spirit, more real than the physical world around me. And in that sacred space, I felt him communicate with me, not with an audible voice, but with a flow of pure understanding, of images and feelings and truths that were poured directly into my soul. He was about to answer my prayer, not with words, but with a revelation. The first thing he helped me understand was that for these little souls, the transition from earth is not a moment of confusion or fear. It is the most seamless and natural experience imaginable. He explained that because their spirits are so pure and unburdened by the complexities and wounds of a long earthly life, they don't experience a jarring separation. It's more like being gently lifted from one loving embrace directly into another. There is no shock, no loneliness, and no moment of being lost. Their journey is one of unbroken love. He then showed me who is there to greet them. It was one of the most beautiful things I have ever witnessed. I saw that each baby is received immediately by the most gentle and nurturing souls in heaven. Often, it's a grandmother or great-grandmother, a family member who had a deep, loving heart and has been prepared specifically for this sacred role of welcome. They are the designated cradlers, souls whose greatest joy in eternity is to receive and comfort the newest arrivals, assuring them they are safe and cherished. What he impressed upon me next was that no soul is ever left to figure things out on their own. The idea of a lonely, confused baby in a vast eternity is a human fear, not a heavenly reality. He showed me that these little ones are brought into what I can only describe as the nurseries of heaven. These aren't sterile, quiet rooms, but vibrant realms of pure light, sound, and color, perfectly designed to nurture a developing soul. They are places of incredible joy, laughter, and gentle discovery, constantly attended by these loving guardian souls. Then he addressed the question of growth. Do they remain babies forever? The answer he gave me was so beautiful it brought me to tears. He explained that they do grow, but not in the slow, often painful way they would have on earth. Their growth is a blossoming and unfolding of their unique personality in an environment of perfect love and safety. They experience a childhood, but it's a childhood without fear, without scraped knees, without rejection or pain. It is the perfect, joyful childhood that every parent wishes for their child. He showed me these souls playing in fields of soft light, learning from angels and loving guardians. Their education isn't about earthly things like math or history. They learn the language of love, the rhythm of creation, and the music of worship. They are taught about their own identity, the family they came from, and the profound love their parents have for them. They are raised in the full knowledge of who they are and how deeply they are cherished, both in heaven and on earth. Their identity is never lost. One of the most powerful parts of this revelation was understanding their connection to their earthly families. He made it clear that the bond between a parent and child is an eternal cord that is never broken. He showed me that these children are fully aware of their parents on earth. They are not distant spectators, they are active participants in their family's life through love. They feel their parents' love, and they are taught how to send their own pure, perfect love back in return. I saw glimpses of how this works. I saw a grieving mother on earth suddenly feel a moment of unexplainable peace or warmth. And he showed me that, in that exact moment, her child in heaven was being taught how to send a hug of love across the veil. These children become little intercessors, pure-hearted advocates for their families. What we might dismiss as a fleeting feeling or a moment of calm is often a direct, intentional gift of love from the child we are missing. He also helped me understand that these children are not less than souls who missed out on life. In his eyes, they have a unique and honored status. Because they lived on earth without ever being touched by the cynicism, doubt, or sin of the world, their spirits remain perfectly pure. They are, as he explained it, like perfect prisms. They reflect his love and his light with a clarity that is incredibly powerful. They hold a special place of honor because of their untarnished innocence. This led to a deeper understanding of their purpose. They aren't just being cared for, they have a vital role in the heavenly community. He described them as the heartbeat of heaven. Their laughter, their joy, their pure, uncomplicated love creates an atmosphere that blesses everyone. They remind all the other souls who lived long and complicated lives of the simple, pure love that is at the center of God's kingdom. They are a living, breathing testament to the beauty of pure innocence. I was shown that they often form the most beautiful friendships with one another. They are not isolated. They are part of a vast and joyful community of peers. They learn and grow together, discovering their unique gifts in a community of perfect acceptance. There is no competition, no jealousy, no hierarchy. Every soul is celebrated for exactly who they were created to be. They experience the kind of perfect friendship and community that we all long for on earth. It's a society built on pure, uncomplicated joy. Then he addressed the question from Lily's mother, does her child remember her? He showed me that not only do they remember, but those first moments of love on earth are the foundational cornerstone of their eternal identity. The sound of their mother's voice, the touch of their father's hand, the songs that were sung to them, these things are not forgotten. They are woven into the very fabric of their soul as their first and most precious experience of love, a memory they cherish for all of eternity. He explained that these earthly memories of love are like a homing beacon for them. It's the anchor that connects them to their family. He showed me Lily's soul, and I saw her replaying that memory of her mother singing to her, not as a sad memory of something lost, but as a joyful celebration of the love that gave her a name and an identity. For these children, their parents' love is their heritage, their first and most important possession, which they carry with them as a badge of honor. I was also shown that these children are often paired with guardian angels who have a special commission to watch over their families on earth. The child's love for their family directs the angel's attention. So, the parents and siblings they left behind have not just one, but a team of heavenly advocates, the child themselves and the angel assigned to them. The family is doubly covered in prayer and protection. all initiated by the pure love of the child who is now in a position of spiritual influence. He gently corrected my human perspective on what a full life means. I had always thought of it in terms of length 80 or 90 years. He explained that a life's value is not measured in duration, but in the love it gives and receives. For these children, their brief time on earth was immensely powerful. In their short lives, they inspired more love, more prayer, and more compassion than many people do in a century. Their lives, though short, were perfectly complete in their purpose. He showed me that these souls have a unique capacity for empathy and comfort. Because their only experience of earth was one of vulnerability and being completely dependent on love, they have a profound understanding of what it means to need comfort. As they grow in heaven, many of them choose to serve as comforters for others, especially for souls who arrive in heaven after difficult or painful earthly lives. Their pure, untainted love becomes a healing balm for the wounded. The entire revelation was drenched in a sense of profound tenderness and personal attention to detail. This wasn't a generic system, it was a bespoke individual plan of care for each soul. He knew each child by name. He knew the specific hopes and dreams their parents had for them. And he was personally ensuring that their eternal existence was even more beautiful, more joyful, and more purposeful than anything their parents could have ever imagined for them. The level of intimate, personal care was simply staggering. As he continued to pour this understanding into me, he began to reveal the part of the story that would truly break me. He shifted my perspective from the children themselves to their parents, both the ones on earth and the ones who would one day be reunited with them. He wanted me to understand the reunion not as a future, distant event, but as an ongoing reality that begins the moment the child enters eternity. The entire process is designed around the promise of that eventual, joyful reunion. He showed me that from the moment a child arrives in heaven, they are actively involved in preparing for their parents' arrival. This isn't a passive waiting, it's an active, joyful, and purposeful mission. They are shown their parents' life journey. They see their struggles, their triumphs, their moments of faith, and their moments of doubt. They see every tear their parents shed for them, and they understand the depth of that love in a way they couldn't have on earth. This is where it became almost too beautiful to bear. He explained that these children, in their perfect innocence, become their parents' greatest cheerleaders. They watch their parents' lives unfold, and they pray for them with a purity and power that is unimaginable. They celebrate their parents' victories. They send comfort during their parents' sorrows. They are not missing from their family's story. They have simply moved from being a character on the stage to being a loving presence in the audience, cheering them on. I watched a scene that I can barely describe. I saw a father on earth who was struggling with his faith years after losing his young daughter. He was angry at God, feeling abandoned, and I was shown his daughter in heaven, not sad or disappointed, but filled with a fierce, loving determination. She was petitioning on his behalf, sending waves of love and peace toward him, refusing to give up on him. She was his most powerful advocate in the courts of heaven. He then showed me that these children are taught by Jesus himself how to prepare the perfect welcome for their parents. They spend years, sometimes decades, learning their parents' hearts. They learn what brings them joy, what makes them laugh, what comforts their soul. They are essentially becoming the perfect hosts, designing a personalized homecoming experience. They are not just waiting to be reunited, they are actively building the welcome home party for the people they love most. I saw a child, a little boy, learning about his father's love for music. So, this boy was learning to play a heavenly instrument, practicing a melody that he knew would make his father's heart soar when he finally arrived. I saw another child, a little girl, cultivating a garden of flowers in colors she knew her mother loved, preparing a place of beauty where they could sit together. Every detail of their heavenly life was infused with the joyful anticipation of being with their family again. The process is also about healing for the parents. He revealed that every prayer a parent offers for their lost child, every tear they cry, every loving memory they cherish, is not lost in the ether. He explained that these acts of love are received in heaven as gifts. They become part of the beautiful home the child is preparing. A mother's tears might become the dew on the flowers in that heavenly garden. A father's prayers might become the light that illuminates their reunion place. He impressed upon me that parents on earth are, without even knowing it, co-creators with their children of their future heavenly home. Their continued love, their grief, their memories, all of it is being woven into the tapestry of their eternal reunion. Nothing is wasted. Every ounce of pain and love is being redeemed and transformed into something beautiful on the other side. The connection is active, real, and constantly building toward that final glorious moment of embrace. Then he showed me the moment of reunion itself. I saw a mother who had lived a long life, finally transitioning into eternity. The first face she saw was not an angel, not a distant relative, but her son, now a radiant, joyful soul, who ran to her, threw his arms around her, and said, "Mom, I've been waiting for you. I have so much to show you." The joy, the relief, the absolute perfection of that moment was beyond any human emotion. It was the fulfillment of a promise made across dimensions. I saw that in that moment of reunion, all the years of pain and separation just melted away as if they had never been. The mother didn't see the baby she lost. She saw the beautiful, whole person her son had become, and she recognized him instantly. And he saw in her the face he had loved and watched over for his entire existence. The love was not just rekindled, it was revealed in its full, unbroken, and eternal glory. It was a love that had conquered separation and time itself. He explained that the first thing these children do is give their parents a tour of the life they have been living. They show them their friends, their creations, the places they love to play. They get to say, "This is what my life has been like, and you were a part of it every single day. Your love was the ground I stood on." It's a beautiful reversal where the child gets to be the guide, revealing the mysteries of eternity to the parent who once guided them into the world. One of the most heart-shattering details was this. The children then take their parents to a special place where they can watch their own earthly life back. But this time, they see it from a heavenly perspective. And they get to see all the moments where their child was there with them, sending love, intervening in unseen ways, comforting them when they felt most alone. They get to see that they were never, ever separated in spirit. They were a family all along, just living in two different places. I watched a mother see a replay of one of her darkest days of grief, a day she thought she was completely alone. But this time, she saw her daughter right beside her, an invisible presence, pouring out heavenly love and peace that gave her just enough strength to get through the day. The mother wept, not with sadness, but with overwhelming gratitude, realizing that her daughter had been her guardian and her comforter all those years. The depth of that love was simply breathtaking. He also made it clear that there is a profound healing of any regrets the parents might carry. Many parents carry guilt, wondering if they could have done more. In this reunion, the child looks them in the eye and communicates a perfect, complete forgiveness and understanding. They convey, "You did everything right. Your love was all I ever needed." It completely absolves the parents of any lingering earthly burdens, freeing them to enter into the fullness of heavenly joy together, with no shadows between them. These children, having grown in an environment of perfect love, become incredible sources of wisdom and comfort for their parents as they adjust to eternity. They help their parents release any earthly anxieties or attachments. They teach them the ways of heaven with the joyful patience of a loving child who is thrilled to share their world. The parent-child dynamic is beautifully preserved, but it's elevated to a new dimension of mutual love, respect, and friendship. I was shown that families are reunited not just with the child they lost, but they are introduced into the vibrant community the child has built. The parents get to meet the cradlers who first welcomed their baby. They meet the friends their child grew up with in heaven. They are not just getting their child back, they are being welcomed into a whole new extended family, a network of love that has been surrounding their child since the moment they arrived. The beauty of this is that the family unit is not just restored, it's expanded and perfected. Siblings who grew up on earth without their brother or sister finally get to meet them, not as a baby, but as a peer who has been watching over them their whole lives. The family picture, which felt incomplete on earth, is finally revealed in its full, glorious, and eternal form. Every member is present, whole, and perfectly connected by a love that has triumphed over every barrier. What broke me was the realization of the sheer, unadulterated goodness of God's plan. It's a plan born not of obligation, but of a deeply personal, tender love. He doesn't just take care of these children, He honors them. He gives them purpose. He makes them central to the story of their family's salvation and reunion. He takes what is the single greatest tragedy from a human perspective and transforms it into a story of hope, purpose, and ultimate victory. He showed me that the love a parent has for a lost child is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. It's a love that is so pure, so selfless, that it carves a direct channel between earth and heaven. That constant ache, that longing, is a form of prayer that is always heard. He wanted me to tell people, do not think your grief is a sign of weak faith. Your grief is a testament to a love so strong it echoes in eternity and actively participates in your child's joy. The final piece of this vision was the understanding that these children are often the very first ones to greet other family members when they arrive. When a grandparent passes, it is often their little grandchild, now a radiant soul, who is there to take their hand and lead them home. They become the official greeters for their entire family line, serving as the first beautiful, familiar face that loved ones see when they cross over from this life into the next. This creates a beautiful legacy of love. The child who is mourned on earth becomes the anchor of the family's presence in heaven. They are the welcoming committee, the joyful guide, the one who knows the way. The family's greatest sorrow on earth is transformed into its greatest asset in eternity. This incredible reversal, this redemption of pain into purpose, is the signature of God's profound and mysterious love. It was more than I could have ever hoped or imagined. I saw that these children hold no resentment or confusion about their short lives. From their perspective, their journey was perfect. They see their earthly life not as a life cut short, but as a sacred mission they completed. Their mission was to plant a seed of eternal love in their parents' hearts, a seed that would then grow and blossom throughout their parents' lives, pulling them ever closer to the promise of the heavenly reunion that awaited them. He helped me understand that from the moment of conception, every soul has an eternal destiny and purpose. Not a single life, no matter how brief, is a mistake or an accident. Each one is an intentional, cherished creation with a story that extends far beyond their time on earth. The length of a life has no bearing on its significance in God's eyes. The impact of these short lives often creates ripples of grace and compassion that last for generations. I saw how the experience of losing a child, while excruciating, often transforms the parents' hearts in profound ways. It makes them more compassionate, more loving, more aware of the fragility and preciousness of life. He showed me that their child's brief life becomes a catalyst for a deeper spiritual journey. For the parents, a journey that ultimately leads them to a more profound faith and a more intimate relationship with God. The child's life becomes a sacred gift, even in the pain. The love these children radiate is completely pure. Having never known betrayal, bitterness, or fear, the love they offer is a healing force. When they are finally reunited with their families, that pure love washes over their loved ones, healing old wounds and regrets from their earthly lives. They bring a unique form of healing that only they can provide, a restoration that comes from their perfect, untarnished innocence. They are not just members of the family, they are healers within the family. Then I saw the souls of parents who, while on earth, had never found faith or had turned their back on God because of their anger and grief. He showed me their children in heaven, constantly praying for them, never giving up hope. And when these parents transitioned, confused and lost, the first person they met was their child, who took their hand and, with perfect love and without a word of judgment, led them to the healing presence of Jesus. Their child was their Savior. This was the ultimate expression of grace, that even a parent's rejection of God could not stop the child's love from reaching them and guiding them home. The child's pure love becomes the bridge that even the most broken person can cross to find forgiveness and peace. It was a stunning picture of how God uses the most innocent and seemingly powerless souls to accomplish the most profound acts of redemption. It completely redefined my understanding of how salvation works. The entire encounter left me with a sense of awe at the intricate, beautiful, and deeply personal tapestry God is weaving. We see only the tangled threads on the back, the confusing patterns of pain and loss, but from His perspective, every thread has a purpose, and it is all being woven together into a masterpiece of love and reunion that will one day be revealed in its full glory. No life and no love is ever wasted. He impressed upon my heart that I needed to share this not as a theological doctrine, but as a story of hope. It's a sacred glimpse behind the curtain, intended to bring comfort, not to create dogma. It's an answer to the cry of a parent's heart. It's a promise that the love you feel for your child is real, it is eternal, and it is the very thing that connects you to them right now, and will one day draw you into the most glorious reunion you can imagine. The final image he left me with was of a vast, joyful celebration. It was a gathering of all these children and their families, reunited and whole. The sound was not one of quiet, somber reverence. It was the sound of laughter, of music, of joyful shouting. It was the sound of homecoming. It was the sound of promises fulfilled. And at the center of it all was Jesus, smiling, delighting in the joy of His children, finally all together in their eternal home. And in that moment, seeing that cosmic celebration, I finally understood what it meant to be broken by this truth. I started weeping, but it wasn't from sadness. It was the kind of weeping that comes when a dam of long-held grief and confusion finally breaks, and all that's left is a flood of overwhelming gratitude and relief. I was broken open by the sheer, unexpected, and extravagant goodness of God's plan for the most vulnerable among us. My heart simply couldn't contain the beauty of it. I thought of that couple at the event, and I cried for them, but this time they were tears of joy. I knew their son, Samuel, was not only okay, but he was living a life of purpose and joy, actively loving them from the other side and preparing for the day he would see them again. The inadequacy I had felt was replaced by a profound sense of peace, knowing the reality was so much better than any comfort I could have ever offered them. I thought of the mother who sang to her baby Lily, and I saw with perfect clarity that every note of her song was a foundational stone in her daughter's eternal home. Her act of love in those few hours had an eternal significance that she could not possibly comprehend. It wasn't a tragic farewell, it was a beautiful, powerful commissioning. She had sent her daughter into eternity wrapped in a blanket of love that would keep her warm forever. The revelation shattered my human-sized view of God. I had subconsciously believed in a God who was loving, yes, but also bound by some set of cold, hard rules of justice and order. The God who revealed this plan to me was a God of radical, creative, and tender-hearted love. He is an artist who takes the broken shards of our greatest tragedies and arranges them into a mosaic so beautiful it steals your breath away. He wastes nothing, especially not our pain. I realized that the question, what happens to them, was the wrong question. The real question is, what incredible, beautiful, and purposeful story are they a part of? They are not passive recipients of grace, they are active, vital members of the kingdom of heaven with a high and holy calling. They are intercessors, comforters, guardians, and hosts. Their short lives on earth were just the prologue to an epic story of love, service, and reunion that will unfold for all of eternity. The tears I shed were also for myself for the years I spent carrying this question in fearful silence. I had been afraid to ask because I was afraid of an answer that would confirm my fears. Instead, I was given an answer that so far exceeded my greatest hopes that it completely rewired my spiritual framework. It was a personal, loving rebuke to my own lack of faith in the boundless creativity and goodness of God's heart. I felt a profound connection to every parent who has ever experienced this loss. The grief that had once felt like a terrifying, isolating abyss now felt like a sacred, shared space. It was a holy ground where a unique and powerful connection to heaven was forged. I understood that this specific type of grief, while the most painful, also holds the potential for the most beautiful and certain hope of a joyful, personal, and meticulously prepared reunion. This experience completely changed my understanding of family. I had thought of family in earthly terms, defined by proximity and shared experiences. But he showed me that family is an eternal spiritual reality. Separation is a physical illusion. The love that binds a family together is a spiritual cord that cannot be broken by distance, time, or even the veil between worlds. We are all still connected, still loving, still participating in each other's stories in ways we can't fully see from here. I understood that these children are the ultimate teachers of faith. Their story teaches us to trust in a goodness we cannot see, to believe in a love that transcends our understanding, and to hope for a reunion that is more certain than the rising of the Sunday. They call us to a simpler, more childlike faith, to simply trust that our Father is good and that He holds our most precious treasures safely in His hands until we can hold them again, ourselves. The emotional weight of this encounter was immense, but it wasn't draining. It was cleansing. It was like years of accumulated spiritual dust and confusion were washed away by a river of pure grace. I felt lighter, more hopeful, and more deeply in love with a God who pays such exquisite attention to the smallest and most vulnerable of His children. The feeling was one of profound, settled peace, the kind that comes only after a long and desperate search finally reaches its end. The breaking was a breaking of my heart's limitations. My heart had been too small to imagine a love this detailed, a plan this redemptive, a hope this personal. It was broken open to make room for a bigger, more beautiful, and more trustworthy vision of God's kingdom. It was the kind of breaking that doesn't leave you in pieces, but leaves you whole for the very first time, healed by a truth you didn't even know you were waiting for. I realized that heaven isn't a homogeneous, one-size-fits-all place. It is a reality that is perfectly tailored to the needs and joys of each individual soul. For a child, it is a place of joyful growth and discovery. For a grieving parent, it is a place of reunion and healing. For a weary soul, it is a place of rest. God's creativity is infinite and His love is personal. He is building a custom-made eternity for each of us. The most personal moment of the climax for me was when He seemed to look into my own heart and address my role as an actor. He helped me understand that the comfort I try to bring by portraying Him is just a shadow of the real, active comfort He is providing every single day through these little heavenly messengers. He was inviting me to align my work more deeply with His, to be a conduit for this specific, powerful hope. It filled me with a new sense of purpose for my own work. To know that there is a real, tangible, and beautiful answer to one of life's most painful questions gives me a new boldness. It's not about having all the answers, but about pointing people to the character of a God who is more loving and more trustworthy than we can possibly imagine. It grounds my performance in a reality that is far more profound than just telling a story. I saw that the story of these children is the ultimate answer to the problem of suffering. When faced with the unexplainable pain of this world, we are given a glimpse into a reality where that pain is not the final word. It is redeemed, transformed, and woven into a story of such immense love and joy that it will one day make all the sorrows of this life seem like a distant dream. Love doesn't just win in the end, it is winning right now. The climax of the experience was realizing this wasn't just information, it was an invitation. An invitation for me, and for everyone who hears this, to live differently, to live with less fear of loss, and more joyful anticipation of reunion. To trust that the people we love are not gone, but are simply in another room, preparing a beautiful welcome for us. It's an invitation to let that hope change how we live and love today. I felt a deep sense of responsibility to share this story exactly as I had received it, not to add to it, not to theologize it, but to simply tell it. To convey the feeling of overwhelming love, the staggering attention to detail, and the profound hope that was at its core. This wasn't my story to keep. It was a gift that was meant to be given away to anyone with a heart that is aching with this same question. The tears finally subsided and were replaced by a quiet, joyful reverence. I was in the presence of a love that was so much bigger, so much more intricate, and so much more personal than I had ever conceived. I had asked a question born of human pain and confusion, and He had answered with a revelation of divine beauty and purpose. My small human question was swallowed up by a vast, cosmic, and yet deeply intimate answer. I knew, as the experience drew to a close, that I would never be the same. The question that had haunted me for years was finally answered, not just in my mind, but in my spirit. A place of deep unrest in my soul was now filled with a calm, certain, and joyful peace. I had received one of the greatest gifts of my life, a glimpse into the heart of the Father for his most beloved children. The final feeling was one of deep connection. Connection to God, connection to these precious souls in heaven, and connection to their families on earth. The veil between worlds felt thinner, not because of some spooky supernatural power, but because of the simple, powerful reality of a love that cannot be contained by any dimension. Love is the bridge, and it's a bridge we can walk across every day through memory, prayer, and hope. As the intensity of the encounter softened and I felt myself returning to a more normal state of awareness, the last impression left on my soul was the sound of children's laughter. It was the purest, most joyful sound I had ever heard. It was the soundtrack of heaven, the audible expression of a world where there are no more tears, no more pain, and no more goodbyes, only love, discovery, and the joyful promise of a family made whole. When I finally opened my eyes, the room was the same, but I was different. The heavy blanket of confusion I had carried for so long was gone, completely lifted. In its place was a warmth that seemed to radiate from the inside out. I felt an incredible sense of peace, not just about this question, but about the nature of God himself. I had encountered his tenderness in a way that had permanently marked my soul for the better. I spent the next few hours just sitting in the quiet, letting the truth of what I had been shown settle deep into my bones. I didn't want to talk, I didn't want to write, I just wanted to be. I wanted to marinate in the beauty and the goodness of it all. It felt like I had been given a precious, fragile gift, and I wanted to honor it by just holding it gently in my heart for a while before trying to put it into words. The most immediate change I noticed was in my own prayers. When I prayed for friends who were grieving, my prayers were no longer just pleas for comfort. They became declarations of hope. I could pray with confidence, knowing that their loved ones were not lost, but were in a place of perfect care and purpose, and were actively participating in the healing of the very people I was praying for. My intercession became infused with the authority of this beautiful revelation. I knew this message was desperately needed. In a world so filled with fear, cynicism, and random tragedy, this story is a powerful anchor of hope. It's a testament that there is a loving intelligence behind it all, a personal heart that is meticulously caring for every single soul. It's a promise that the chaos we see is not the ultimate reality. The ultimate reality is a perfectly orchestrated plan of love, reunion, and eternal joy. This revelation isn't meant to erase the pain of grief. The sadness of missing someone you love is real and it must be honored. But this knowledge is meant to be a companion to that grief. It's meant to plant a seed of joyful hope in the soil of your sorrow. It assures you that your separation is temporary, but the love is eternal. Your loved one's story is not over. A beautiful new chapter has begun, and they are waiting for you to join them. And so, this changes how we should live. We can love more freely, knowing that love is never, ever lost. We can face the future without fear, knowing that a beautiful personal welcome is being prepared for each of us. And we can comfort others not with empty platitudes, but with a confident, joyful hope that even in the face of our greatest loss, God is working out a beautiful story of redemption and reunion that is far beyond our wildest dreams. The truth is, these children are not a tragedy to be pitied, they are heroes of the faith to be honored. Their short lives accomplished a powerful, eternal purpose. They tethered their families' hearts to heaven and became their most powerful advocates and prayer warriors. They are living a full, vibrant, and purposeful existence, and they are waiting with joyful anticipation for the day when their family circle will finally be complete and unbroken for all of eternity. So, I want to end with a prayer for every person who is carrying this specific pain. Father, I lift up to you every parent, every grandparent, every sibling and loved one who is grieving the loss of a precious child. I ask that you would take the beautiful truth of their child's heavenly life and plant it deep within their hearts. Replace their confusion with peace, their sorrow with the joyful anticipation of reunion, and their fear with a confident hope in your extravagant, personal, and perfect love. Let them feel, in this very moment, a wave of love sent from their child across the veil. Remind them that they are not separated in spirit, and that every act of love and memory is a gift that is received with joy on the other side. Comfort them with the knowledge that their family story is not over, and the most beautiful chapter, the one where you wipe away every tear and reunite them forever, is still to come. In Jesus' precious name, amen. If this message touched your heart, I'd be honored if you'd subscribe to stay connected for more of these conversations. And please, share your own story or perspective in the comments below. Your story matters, and I would truly love to hear it.